Hello, 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 everybody. Welcome back to another episode of the Brittany Smith podcast. I'm your host, Brittany N. Smith, and you guessed it, we are back with another amazing expert, and she knows what I do, y'all, and so I'm excited that this conversation is going to get really juicy really quickly because she can relate to me and I can relate to her. And if you guys enjoy the work that I do in my business, I know that you're going to benefit from what she does in her business. So today's guest, we have Natasha Ho, and she's all the way from Seattle. So we are literally a whole nation apart from each other right now, recording this podcast, but that is the beauty of technology. So Natasha, thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you so much for having me here, Brittany. I'm excited to chat with you.
Yay. Yeah. So I want you, Natasha, to start off. First of all, you guys, just in case you didn't know, the N in Brittany N. Smith stands for Natasha. So you've got two Natashas here. That means this is really about to get crazy. Because I feel like sidebar, I feel like Natasha is kind of like a mysterious, like tough but yet beautiful kind of thing going on.
Yeah, I liked my name because when I was growing up, not everybody had my name. It was a little bit more unique. And then it was like, people always thought it was like a Russian spy kind of name. Yeah,
exactly. Russian spy. That's exactly. So I feel like we have that kind of thing going on the inside. So Natasha, tell us who you are and what you do in your own words.
Yes, I am Natasha Ho. I'm the owner of the All-In Woman, and I work with expert creatives, coaches, and consultants to help them attract clients that love to pay them and that they love to work with. And the work that I do, I'm a marketing strategist, I'm a growth consultant, and all of that really stems from my experience growing my own business, as well as learning how to market big multinational brands. So like a lot of other people, especially women of color, I got the message growing up, you got to go to school and get a good job, and that's the path to success. So I followed the rules. I went to the prestigious school, I got the degree, I got the job. And it honestly, like I was in PR and marketing for 15 years and I was climbing up the corporate ladder. But I remember at one point I looked at my boss and I was like, I don't want my boss's job. So what do I do from here? And it just wasn't that fulfilling for me at a certain point because I was just like, okay, I'm helping build these other companies up. And so I knew for a while that I wanted to do something on my own, but I couldn't quite navigate what that was or how to grow the business. And so I was trying different things like side hustles. And then 2020 came along and I lost my corporate job. And so I was thrown into the deep end of figuring out what I wanted to do next. And so I had 8-month-old baby, I had a mortgage and doctor's bills and all of this. And of course, I decided to add to that mix, I'm going to become an entrepreneur on top of that.
Oh, that's the Natasha side. That's the risk side, the risk taker. That's what it is.
Exactly. But it was one of the best things I could have done, honestly, because I knew like I was commuting 3 hours a day before to go to work. And so I was like, I don't want to do that anymore. I don't want to commute for 3 hours a day anymore, especially being a mom to a new baby. And so I started experimenting with ideas around what I could do. So my first business was actually teaching online cooking lessons to people during the pandemic, which worked really well because everyone was stuck at home. And so I was teaching about how to bring flavors from around the world into your kitchen and really switch it up so you didn't get stuck in a rut around cooking. And I turned that into my first launch was a $20,000 launch.
Wow.
And I was like, okay, like we were getting somewhere.
Yeah.
So I went from that into launching all sorts of different offers to really figure out what my niche was and what I wanted to focus on. I did retreats, I did different consulting work. And then over time, I started to realize that what a big part of my gift was my history and background in marketing. So that's what moved me into working with people around how to tell their stories, how to build a brand, how to message around what they do, and how to attract the kind of clients that they wanted to work with. And so it has been really fun because I've gotten to tap into all of my different areas of passion and interest, from food to travel to talking about marketing and storytelling. And so now that's the primary focus of what I do. But what really I think sets me apart in the way that I do it from a lot of other people is my main focus is that play is a core value of how I grow my business and how I encourage my clients to grow their business. So for people who are like, hey, I want to do this, but I don't want to grind it out. I don't want to burn myself out. And I actually want to enjoy the experience of growing my business. That is one of the things that we focus on. Like, fun is not just an afterthought or a side effect. It's one of the main things that we're after in how we build your business and your marketing strategy.
I love that. I love that. As soon as you said that, I'm like, that's an interesting concept, because right about now, I'm sure I'm not the only one that could use a little more fun in their lives and in their business. And I'm glad that you mentioned, you had a small baby at the time, which, I mean, by now, what, 3 or 4-ish?
Yep.
So they're still pretty active, and so we're trying to be moms and we're trying to build our businesses and live life. Where is fun? Like, what is that? So talk to us a little bit more about that concept and why play is such a big part of your approach to growing your business.
Yes. So I honestly didn't know when I first started that this was even like something that was unique. I think this is what a lot of people run into, is that you do your thing and you don't really realize your thing is like special until somebody else points it out to you.
That's facts right there. That's facts.
And so I was working with a storytelling coach as I was building the business. And so he asked me a question. He said, "What's the best compliment anyone has ever given you?" And I told him that the best compliment was from my husband. He told me I was a great mom. And he said the reason that my husband thought I was a great mom is because of the way I played with our son. And so the coach I was working with at the time, he's like started to connect the dots, and he's like, I see exactly, like, that's the secret sauce that you bring to your work, is that for the people that you work with, when I was doing the cooking lessons, it was you give them an environment where they can play and that they can experiment and they can make mistakes and they can discover things, and that they also have a playmate. They have somebody to play with. And like, there's this entire environment where they get to tap into that playfulness, because we spend so much time so focused on hard work and accomplishment and task oriented. And so we don't really get a chance to be playful. And so I built the first business really understanding that playfulness was a key part of why that worked and why people would invest. And so when I came to the marketing piece, I was like, well, I don't want to lose that. That's like the part that really makes this fun and exciting. And so as I was starting to create what my framework was for working with people, I created the 6-figure play method. And so when people work with me, we focus on the play piece. So the first part of that, the P in play, it's an acronym. So the first part
is acronyms. Yes. We love acronyms on the Brittany Smith podcast. Yes, we do. Continue.
Thank you. So the P is prioritize yourself. Because I think that's the big part of playfulness is that you're actually taking care of yourself and you're having fun. So the first thing that I do with my clients is we actually talk about what is it that you want and what's the vision that you have and why are you doing all the things that you're doing in your life and in your business. And then the next part is L, which is learn the skill set. So this is an important piece, is that you actually have to know the steps to take, the how. And so we go through the skill set around sales and marketing so that you have the hard skills that you need to accomplish your goals. Then A is augmenting the awareness. So a big part is not only knowing what to do, but knowing how to think about what's happening in your business. So this is really the mindset piece. And in a key part of the playfulness is that I had to switch from the employee mindset into an entrepreneurial mindset. And the foundation of that was thinking about having a win or learn mentality. So either I'm going to win and I'm going to celebrate that win, or I'm going to learn something and I'm going to celebrate that learning. And so that made actually trying new things in the business more fun, because it wasn't like success or failure, success or failure, success or failure.
Right.
It was, okay, let's try something new. What would be the most fun and playful way that we could solve this problem? How can we get really creative with problem solving in the business? How could I choose clients that I'd be really excited to work with? How could I create a solution for this group of people that I'd be excited to talk about, instead of just a program that I'm like, I'll put this out there and hope it works. But it's like, I'm excited to talk about it and I really want people to join it. So that's the augmenting the awareness piece. And the last part, Y, is for YOLO, because you only live once. And so we make sure that we focus on celebrating like every single thing, like the actions that you're taking, the wins that you're having. Like I send champagne to my clients when they're like, hey, I had this win. I'm like, yes, let's celebrate. Let's pop a bottle. Like I send them all sorts of gifts. We talk about even small things. Like one of my clients, she's like, okay, after I do this task, I'm going to reward myself with some like fruit snack. It's like whatever it takes for you to feel like you're enjoying the journey towards the accomplishment that you want to have. Because like if we only celebrate when you arrive, never arrive. It's like you're always
Yeah,
gonna
there's
want
no
something more.
celebration.
There's no celebration because you're always gonna be like, okay, so I accomplished that thing. What's next? Okay, so I accomplished that thing. What's next? And so really making sure that we have take a moment to acknowledge ourselves and say like, hey, I just put really a bunch of time and energy into this, and I'm proud of myself for that. And hey, I just like accomplished this and got this result. I'm really proud of myself for that. So actually taking the time to do that.
I love that. We definitely have to celebrate more. And like you said, if we only focus on arriving, we will never celebrate because there's always room for improvement. There's always
Right.
room for growth. There's always room for expansion, right? And so if we always get to the point where we're ready to expand and we just go ahead and expand and we don't celebrate the fact that we got to that point, you're absolutely right in terms of we would just never, we would have balloons in the corner and never get to blow them up, you know?
Exactly. Yeah.
Yes.
And then it just makes it feel like your business is like always just work and it's always an uphill battle. And it's like, oh, there's never a point where you actually feel like you've accomplished because you're
Yeah.
always on to the next one.
So let me ask you this, in your personal business, what does your celebration system look like, right? So when I say that, are there certain types of things that you celebrate? Are there certain ways that you celebrate those certain kinds of things? Is it like a monthly thing or as it comes up? Like, tell us what that looks like for you personally.
Yeah. So when I think about like I have a goal and there's something that I want to accomplish, I always use the law of cause and effect. So I say, okay, this is the effect that I want. So for instance, money is always an effect. So I want money to come into my business. So then I think about what causes money. What causes money is sales. Okay, so what causes sales? Now that's the effect I want, and I move back into the cause. So once I get into a cause that's actually the steps that I'm going to take, then I build my schedule of what I'm going to do around those action steps. So if it was like, I'm going to fill up this program, well, what do I need to do to fill up this program? I need to do this kind of marketing. I need to reach out to these affiliate partners. I need to do X, Y, and Z. So when I accomplish those things, when I take those action steps, that's one of the times that I celebrate, because I'm celebrating myself for taking the action, because that's the thing that I can control. And so if I can make sure that I celebrate myself for taking action and doing that part of it, then I'm going to be having a positive reinforcement around taking the action. A lot of times people will only focus on celebrating when the success of like the result comes, and they don't celebrate the action. And the thing is that you can't always control the result. Like you can do everything right and still not get the result.
Right.
And it's just, a matter of circumstances. But if you can celebrate yourself for taking the action consistently, then eventually results will show up, but you have to celebrate the consistent action so that you actually reinforce the fact that, okay, I'm going to keep taking action even when I don't see the result yet. It's like, if you're trying to lose weight and it's like you step on the scale every time and you're like, the weight's not gone yet, weight's not gone yet. But
Right.
if you stop, then the weight would never go anywhere. But if you
Right.
can consistently celebrate yourself and say like, hey, I'm putting in the work, I'm doing my workouts, I'm eating really, clean, healthy food, and then you celebrate yourself by, taking yourself out to a movie or whatever, then you're going to consistently keep doing the thing that you need to do. So I have that same approach when it comes to the action. So I celebrate it when I'm like, okay, I set out the goal to do this many actions and this sort of timeline. I always, when I have a goal, I set the timeline. So when I reach the end of that timeline, then I would pick like what kind of celebration that I want to have, whether that's going out to somewhere to eat or buying myself something nice or going to get like a pedicure or whatever it might be. It might be whatever thing is going to like light me up and make me feel really happy. Sometimes it's buying gifts for my son, actually. I just like to see him super happy. So when I'm like, mommy had something positive happen, here's a new toy for you, because it makes me feel good to see him excited. We actually just did like a spontaneous trip to Disneyland last weekend, because I had a few things that I hadn't celebrated yet. And I was like, okay, like we should just like have fun. So it was just me and my son. We just went and flew down to Anaheim for the weekend. And that was like our fun little celebration, was doing that. So celebrating the action. And then obviously when you create results that you're really proud of, when I sign new clients on, or when I have an event that's successful, those kinds of things, I also will celebrate and give myself things. So I have actually a little list in my phone of like things that I want to do or things I want to buy. And I will just go through that list and tick things off.
Well, the funny thing is, and this is why it's the Natasha thing, I'm telling you. So I too have a list in my phone. It's called the Brittany Care List. And it's all the things that I like. It's, my favorite, from my favorite candy to, expensive things that I want one day, and everything in between. So I love that you do that already. And it is something that I know that we all need to practice more. I had a client, we did a VIP day last month. And the concentration for her VIP day was that she wanted to start her podcast. And so we did all the things to set up her podcast. We recorded her intro and outro. I recorded her, making a video and kind of saying this was so great. My issue is I never get around to posting these things. And so yesterday she launched her podcast this week. Woo!
Yeah.
You guys check out the Charlie B podcast on Spotify. And so she had her first episode had 50 listens, 50 downloads, which is huge awesome. for her first episode. She didn't really have a following before that or anything. So, but again, I am always just like looking at the next thing, so this is really crunching my toes right now, where I should have paused to celebrate her, but then also celebrate my system that worked.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? She was my first VIP day podcast client. And so to see that we actually produced a podcast is like, whoa. But to your point, it's sometimes easy for us to kind of like minimize what we've done because we're just in the work of it, and at the same time, it's like, all I did was things that are normal for me, but it's life-changing for her, so I have to do a better job at that. And I know that those who are listening, that many of them have to do a better job at it as well, because you're absolutely right. If we don't, it'll suck the life out of why we do what we do. And we'll only always be confronted with the hard parts, with the silly parts, with the challenging parts, with the irritating client parts. And we don't even celebrate the great clients because the irritating clients are just like this, so you're absolutely right in this. You mentioned kind of having a goal and doing the things around that particular goal. So for example, a mastermind program or a program that you want to launch. How do you help your clients get through the mindset piece of launching a new something in their business?
Oh yeah. Well, there's many things that come up. I mean, like it could be, there's lots of fear. There's often imposter syndrome that comes up, all of those things. So it depends on what it is that's coming up in particular. I just had a conversation with a client today. She's launching a new program, and the thing that's coming up for her was commitment issues. And she's like, she couldn't commit to a date, and then she couldn't commit to like when she was going to start the promotion, those kinds of things. So I think the biggest thing is looking at what the pattern is that my clients have. And one of the ways that we noticed what pattern she had coming up was in her sales conversations, looking to see what kind of objection was coming up most frequently for her. And so the objection that she was getting again and again was people that were not ready to like move forward. And so what I've noticed is usually when we are seeing something showing up in the kind of clients that we're attracting or in the sales conversations that we're having, it's really a reflection of what's showing up inside of us. And so
Mm.
she was having trouble getting people to commit because she was not making commitments herself. And so
Wow.
it's always difficult to get somebody to do something and influence somebody to do something that you're not doing yourself. And
Right.
so when people came up with excuses or reasons or circumstances for to not move forward, she couldn't she couldn't challenge them around that because she couldn't challenge herself around her own commitment issues. And so she was like, oh my God, I see it so clearly now. And so in that conversation, we're like, okay, well, the thing that you have to do is you have to make a commitment. So what are you going to make a commitment to? And so whenever it comes to mindset issues, the first thing is awareness. That's what the A is, to augment the awareness. So you have to recognize what is the mindset issue? What is the thing that's getting in your way, whether that's fear, shame, blame, guilt, all of those things. The first thing we do is actually recognizing it, and then we create a plan of action, because the only thing that will take you through that is there has to be action. You
Right.
can't think your way out of it. And so if you sit there and you're like, okay, I'm just going to like fix my mind, and that never really works, because it's like,
Yeah.
okay, I'm going to take one thought out, but I'm going to replace it with a new thought. So the first thing is like, okay, this is my old way of being. What's the new way of being that I'm going to choose to commit to? So if the new way of being is I'm going to make commitments, the new way of being is I'm going to be a person who it has integrity and I'm going to follow through. So if you say that, that's the new way that you're going to be. You've got to always replace something. So you've replaced it with this new thought. Now, what's the action that I take that's in alignment with that? So if I'm going to show up as a person who is full of integrity and makes commitments, then make the list of what are the actions you're actually going to do, because now you're taking action that's in alignment with this new way of being. So we were on the phone and she's like, okay, this is the date for the event. She picked a date for the event and she's like, okay, these are the people that you need to reach out to because they've been waiting for you to pick the date for the event so that you can actually sell the program to them. And then when are you going to start that marketing, and how many times are you going to market it, and block that time out in your calendar so that so now we're actually taking action that's in
Right.
alignment with that new way of being. So the awareness comes first, figuring out what that way of being is that's not working for you. It's not getting you what you want. Then choosing the new way that they want to commit to being, and then finding action that's in alignment with that new way.
Awesome. 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 Ladies, I hope you got all of that, because I know, a part of our challenges with growth and with success in our business is mindset.
Mm-hmm.
It is us getting past ourselves. We
100%.
are in the way. And I can totally identify with your client. I just had a workshop 2-3 weeks ago, and prior to the workshop, I'm like, yeah, I'm about to, try to pitch this mastermind to the world. And my pastor / coach was like, you need to have an in-person event. And I was like, why do I need to have an in-person event when I'm just going to, put this mastermind out there and we're just going to master the minds together. And she's like, you need to have a middle step. Okay. I was trying to just jump over the middle step and just go for the big program. And so to your point, the initial thing that rose up was, I'm not going to get people to come to this event. I'm not going to be able to get them to come in person. And so once I worked through that, I said, okay, they're not coming if I don't have a venue and I don't have a date. They can't come, right? So you're right. You're not going to get people to come if you don't actually put it in place. So the same day I booked the venue, I put a deposit down, put real money down, so couldn't get it back. So it had to happen. I found a food vendor and all those things. So like you said, I did the steps. What comes naturally to planning an event? You need a venue. You need to get your content together. You need to figure it all out. You need to set up a platform that people can actually register. So once I did those steps, I was like, oh, I'm having an event. And something shifted in my brain. It was like, oh, well, now I just got to tell people about it.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? So you're absolutely right. There's some parts of it that are us just literally doing the things, accomplishing the small little checklist off the list, and doing the things. But then once we see that it's built, it's like, oh, okay, I feel better inviting people to something that's actually there.
Yeah, I think the thing is like thinking like I'm going to feel ready or I'm going to know what to do before I do it. And it's like, you don't really feel ready beforehand. It's like you
Yeah.
have to start doing it and then the feeling ready. It's like this whole idea of courage and bravery. It's like, I'm going to feel really courageous and brave. And then it's like, no, you do the thing. And then on the other side of it, you recognize that you were brave because you did it in the face of the fear and all of the resistance that came up. And now you've done this and you're planning an event. And so
Yes. Yes.
now you know
Yes.
exactly what you need to do. Yeah.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And so I want you to talk about the ways, because we're talking about planning events and stuff now, right? Like we have trainings, we have programs. We both serve coaches and consultants and content creators who are building these things out to give their expertise to the masses. So talk about some of the benefits of using those services or those offerings as a way to increase your revenue.
Using which service, like masterminds and events
Yeah,
and
like
things like that?
training, workshops, programs, those kinds of things. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. So I always tell people that when you are creating your offerings, one of the things that you want to consider is making sure that you are hitting the points on the value mountain. And so I think of your value mountain is basically there's this big, huge mountain that your ideal client wants to get to the top of. And so you are like a Sherpa who is going to guide them to the top of this mountain. So the top of the mountain is like their grand desire. So that could be like they want to make a lot of money, or they want to be really healthy, or they want to have really great relationships. So that's always what's going to be at the top of the mountain. One of those three core desires is going to be at the top of the mountain. And you're the guide that helps them to get there. And so not everybody is going to be ready and willing to scale all the way to the top. If you've ever been mountain climbing, I remember when I was a kid, we went to Mount Rainier, which is a mountain near us. And we were like, we're going to climb this mountain. And then the whole of my family got there and they're like, yeah, we're just going to hang out at this little bus down here. Nobody realized that mountain climbing is like a for real thing you need to prepare for. So not everybody's going to be ready to go to the top. So some people are going to want to climb all the way to the top with you, and you want to make sure that you have offers for those people. So those are your offers that are like, maybe one-to-one coaching. Those are longer programs, really in-depth programs that are going to get them the full transformation. Those are things that go all the way to the top of your mountain, maybe a mastermind, those kinds of things. So those are typically your done for you type of offers or one-on-one work with somebody. And then you also have people that will only want to maybe go halfway up the mountain with you. And these are your done with you kind of offers. So these are the offers where you're going to work with somebody. This might be like a group program or other offerings where like courses and things like that, where you work alongside someone to help them get the transformation. And then towards the bottom of your mountain are those kinds of offers where those are DIY offers. So these are things more like training, workshops, master classes, events, and webinars where you're going to do some teaching and somebody's going to walk away with the information that they need in order for them to create an outcome. So if you are starting out, the two that I tell people they should always have are one at the bottom and one at the top. So you always want to make sure that you have that introductory offer, the one at the bottom, because that's really the opportunity for people to start that journey with you. They start climbing the mountain with you. So they get to know you, they build the know, like, and trust with you. You have that rapport building, and now you have an ascension opportunity to help them go further up the mountain with you. The other one that you always want to have is the one at the top, which is your done for you offer, because this gets somebody all the way to the top of the mountain. And so if you have somebody who comes to you and you only have something that's at the bottom of the mountain, when it's time for them to go the rest of the way, you have nothing to offer them. So they go elsewhere and they spend money with somebody else. And so if you really want to help your clients get the full transformation, like if they're like, hey, I want to transform my relationship, or I want to be able to, have a business that hits multiple six figures and that my marketing is completely figured out and solved, or I want a full branding package, whatever it might be, you need to have something that gets them all of that. And so those are typically going to be your premium higher ticket offer where you work with somebody to get the full transformation. So you always want to have that. The middle offer, the done with you offer, is the one that you only start to use that once you have a full built out framework. So that means like you have a system that you help people with so that you don't actually have to do as much one-on-one work with them. So typically a lot of people rush into having group programs has been my experience when they don't have a framework yet. And so it makes it much harder because you're basically trying to do one-on-one coaching within a group environment. And so that's actually what happens is it's not really done with you. It's just one-on-one program in a group environment. So you're typically probably just undercharging and not making as much money as you should be because all those clients should just be one-on-one clients that you help. So I mean that's a whole tangent that I can go off on.
No,
but I won't
listen,
go off
I was going to ask you. So, because I totally agree. I totally agree and have even been in that position sometimes where I'll have something and I'm like, I should have charged more for this because you find that people, they weren't ready. They weren't at the place where they could, digest the material on their own enough to do the work and benefit from what you wanted to give. And so you end up giving them more because you realized that they're still needing a bottle when you got steak over here talking about, here, eat this, So I want people to understand, and everybody listening is on the spectrum, right? Like there are some that are having business ideas, and then there are some who have been in business now, for a couple of years. And I find that it's always a tricky thing trying to figure out your value ladder, right? Like, okay, what is enough to be my lower hanging fruit? What should my middle one be? I want to give a lot, but I don't want to give everything. And then how do I price all of them accordingly so that it's a natural progression? And if I'm doing, especially if we're working with business owners and what we're doing is supposed to help them with their business, if they come in at my lower offer, what I'm teaching them should hopefully help them once it's applied, help them to be able to afford the next thing. And then we do the next thing. And then hopefully once we're done with that, they're like, yo, I can't leave you now. You helped me get this far. So talk about that customer journey and how to craft that in a way that makes sense. I was going to say sensicles.
Yes.
Make the sensicles for us, please, Natasha.
Yes. I love this because this is the thing that I've been really locking into my business over the past year. So when people are starting out with you, like you said, you want to have that offer that helps them get a win, helps them get a result. So when you're creating that DIY offer, it can look like a lot of different things. It could be the trainings that we talked about. It could be your social media. So I use like a Facebook group, a free Facebook group. It could be a podcast that you have. All of these things are ways for you to build that relationship with people and for them to be able to use that to get some kind of an outcome. So when I'm thinking about this, usually my thing at the bottom is going to be free to low cost. And low cost can be different for various people, but I usually typically think of it as going to be something that's under $1,000 for the most part when I'm pricing these kinds of things. To pick your specific pricing, it depends on really the value of what's going to be in there, because you always want the price to be less than the value. You want the value to greatly outweigh the price that you're attaching to something. So if I tell somebody, hey, you come into this program, and when you get to the end of this program, you're going to know exactly how to message around your offer to bring in premium clients. So what is the value of that? Well, if I tell people that in order to work with me, you need to have a $2,000 program, well, if they can close one client, that means that they are able to make $2,000. So the value of this would be at a minimum $2,000. So I can easily price that offer and say, I'm going to charge you $500 because the value of this is greatly outweighed by the price point. So that's the thing, that the kind of the math that we're doing is there's thinking about the value. We're also thinking about the speed, because you can also charge more if you're going to get a person a result faster. So if you're like, hey, you do this with me for one day, like a VIP day, and then you can charge more for a VIP day because of the speed. Right. Versus if you're like, hey, you have to work with me for a year, then it's like, oh, okay, well, if I'm going to create a podcast in a year, you're probably not going to be able to charge as much because that's a really long time to have to create a podcast. Versus I can create it with you in a day. Then it's like, oh, okay, I can get the result really, really quickly. So those are some of the factors that we consider. The last one is effort, perceived effort by the person. So if they perceive the effort as very low for them, You can also raise the price higher. That's why done for you is usually more expensive, because it's like, I don't have to do that much. You're going to do it for me. Okay, I'll pay a little bit more. So those are the factors that we're considering when we're pricing it at all the different levels. So that first level, done DIY, usually under $1,000, cheaper type of offer. Then we move into the done with you. This can be a huge, huge range when it comes to pricing, because it depends on like where you are in terms of your overall price point. But for the most part, I think of these offers anywhere up to like probably $5,000 or $10,000 for most of them. But some people have done with you offers that are like, I've seen a done with you offer that was $50,000. So it really, really varies.
Well, all right. I ain't mad at you.
But I think for me, like for most of the stuff that I would put in that range, it would be anywhere from probably 5 to maybe 15 or 20 would be probably the top that I see for the average. And then up at the top for your done for you offers, that can obviously, again, it could be huge. It could be from $10,000 to $100,000, just depending on what kind of offering that you have. But the key thing there is really, again, coming back to your own like goals around how much money that you want to make and the revenue that you want to make. How many clients can you actually sustain, and making sure that you price yourself for being able to make the kind of money you want with the amount of clients that you can actually hold. I'll talk to people and they'll be like, oh, okay, I want to charge, $700 a month for this program. And I'll ask them, how many clients could you have? And they'll be like, oh, okay, I can hold maybe about 10 clients. And then they'll say, and my goal for the year is 10K months. And I'm like, okay, well, if you have $700 a month times 10 clients, that's $7,000. So you actually can't reach 10K months without you burning yourself out, because you have to have an additional like 4 clients per month beyond what you say is your capacity for the for a month, on a month-to-month basis. So really making sure that you also do the math around, okay, these are my goals, my financial goals of what I want to achieve, and how many clients can I realistically hold? And now have I included packages where I can sell one of those and be able to hit my financial goals? So that might mean that you might need to have a larger package, like your done for you offer, that higher ticket offer. You might need to add that to your suite if you don't have it, or you might need to add a larger version of it. So maybe you only have like a $3,000 offer, and that's where you're topping out right now. And you're like, hey, I'm not going to hit my financial goals by just selling that $3,000 offer. So what if you had a $7,500 offer? What could that look like? So that you could actually hit your financial goals. And then thinking about, well, what would my person need in order for them to feel like they're getting enough value in that $7,500 offer?
Yeah, no, so this is really good. So ladies, listen, one thing I hear Natasha saying is raise your prices.
Yes. Yes. Long story short,
you're not charging enough. Raise your prices. And her sweet tone, her very kind. She's like, sis, you're not charging enough. That's what she's doing. All of this. Her Natasha side is doing all of this.
But making sure that it's also that the value is there.
Yes.
And absolutely. For the most part, the value is there, and most people do need to raise their prices.
Absolutely.
But also just making sure that the value is there, because I think sometimes people think, oh, I'll just add a couple zeros, and that's not.
So let's talk about that. Let's talk about that real quick, and then we'll land the plane. So how do you gauge value? Like if you're working with a client and they're like, yeah, well, I'm just going to raise my prices. Like, how do you assess how do you assess whether what they're bringing to the table and what they're offering is worth the price that they want to put out there? And then I guess for the entrepreneur listening, how do I assess, right? Like, yes, I want to take into account my time that I'm putting into this. Do I think about how many years of experience I have in the business? Or do I think about how many clients I've gotten, like as a testament to the fact that I'm good at what I do? So how do we navigate that? And how do we determine value as it relates to how much we can charge?
Yes. So I think there's a couple pieces, but you had a few great points there. One is looking at it through the eyes of your client, of the person who's actually going to be buying this. So what is the value of that outcome to them in their eyes? So if you're saying that you're going to help somebody have their, dream wedding, well, what's the value of that in their eyes? And so this could be looking at it through the financial cost, the opportunity cost, the emotional cost. So if you're removing stress from them, if you're helping them save money on their wedding because you have relationships, et cetera. So all of these would be things that would help build the value of this in their eyes. So that's one piece of it, is like looking at it through the eyes of your potential client, of what would they invest in order to get the outcome? How important is it to them to get that outcome? And so that's also another thing, that if you're feeling like you need to raise your prices, it may also mean you need to change your target audience, because you might be targeting an audience where the perceived value is not that high. I actually had a client who had this issue where she was targeting healthcare workers with around like coaching, lifestyle coaching. And what she realized was that the healthcare workers didn't really value that highly. They kind of just believed like, my life is hard and that's just the way things are.
Right.
And it's like, yeah, I mean, being in the healthcare setting, there's a lot of things that they can't control. And so for them to have a mentality that like they can control the way they feel and feel better about their situation, it was really hard to sell them on that. And their perceived value around a change was not very high. So she had to change her target market to somebody who did value that more, so that she could charge what she wanted to charge. So the perceived value may be higher if you switch to a different audience. It may not be the audience that you're currently targeting. So that's part number one. And then part number two is really about your expertise. What you were saying earlier is, how sure and assured are you that you can help people get that outcome, and that you can consistently help people get that outcome? So if you're a beginner and you're starting out, your confidence level around helping people get that outcome, and your list of testimonials and social proof might be pretty small. So it doesn't make sense for you to try to charge a whole bunch of money to people, because it wouldn't make sense. It wouldn't be an ethical thing for you to be like coming out the gate, charge a $50,000. And it's like, well, do you have $50,000 kind of experience? No, you don't. So you want to start at a lower level so that you can start to build up your experience level, and so that you can start to have testimonials and social proof. And so you'll charge less. And then as you build up the amount of clients that you've worked with, and you've built up your system where you can say, I really have a true system where I can consistently get people from point A to point B, and I know that I can repeat that process over and over again, and then that's when you raise your prices, because you now have a consistent, repeatable process to help people get a result, and you are an expert. And so people will pay more for that expertise. And so I raised my prices over time. When I first started out, I charged a much different amount than I charge now. And as I get better, and as I learn more, and as I do more, my prices will go up, because I'm bringing more value to the table. I'm able to do more. I'm able to teach people more effectively. People get better results, faster results. So all of those things over time, as you're getting better, your prices should also reflect the fact that you're getting better and better. So if you've never raised your prices, definitely you need to look at those prices and be like, okay, well, you designed websites back in the day, and it used to take you a month to put that website together. But if you can do a website in, a week now, well, then your prices should reflect the fact that you are now better, and you can do what you did in a month in a week now.
I love it. I love it. And listen, you said if you've never raised your prices ever, if you've been in business for a minute and you've never raised your prices, you just need to raise your prices off the strength that you've been in business and you're still in business, that
Right.
people are still coming to you for whatever that service or product is. It means you have something that's valuable. And also, I love that you mentioned social proof. In the industry that we are in terms of serving businesses, right? There's nothing better than a word of mouth referral or a testimonial that, the person had a really amazing experience, because now in the society that we live in, people live and die by those things. Like, they will go on Yelp. They will look at Amazon reviews. They will look and see what people have said about this service. And if your results or your your reviews are glowing, people are more inclined to trust that than actually looking at the things that you offer and like, doing the regular research. They'll look at what people have said, which is why, I mean, again, another tangent, which is why you definitely need to promote the work that you've done, like in the past. For me, that's a part of the celebration. A part of the celebration is, hey guys, look at what I did, or look at what we put together.
So did you post that about your client, the VIP day yet?
Listen, I'm gonna do it this week. I need to do it today, but I'm like I'm up to my eyeballs in stuff. And so it's like, all right, I have to pull myself together because I really do. I need to share it. Like I need to. You're right, Natasha. Okay, you're right. See, it's the accountability going on here. No, so you're absolutely right. So we have to do the things. And again, it just kind of reciprocates the pat on the back, like you got to give yourself a pat on the back from time to time so that you can keep on going. So listen, I mean, we could be here for a minute because there are other things swirling in my head. So we may need to do a part 2 or something. But Natasha, this has been great. Thank you so much for hanging out with me on the show. Tell us what you have. You mentioned you had a membership program for people to come into your world, come into your space and start to get some of these nuggets. So tell us about that and how we can partake.
Yes. So I have a membership group. It's called the 6-Figure Inner Circle. And this is a way that you can work with me if what you're looking for is more structure in your business and you really want to have support around what to be doing on a daily, a weekly, and a monthly basis in your business to move yourself forward towards that first milestone of hitting $100,000 in your business on the way to building your multi-6-figure or 7-figure empire. So what I do is I give you guidance on a daily basis around the content to write and how to market yourself. And then on a weekly basis, we focus on one of 4 areas, either your marketing, your nurturing, your prospecting, or your sales conversion. And finally, you get Q&A support from me. So all the questions that we've been talking about today, if you're like, hey, I want to dig even deeper into that kind of stuff with Natasha and ask her more questions, that's what we do inside that community. So if you're interested in that, you can find me on Facebook at the All In Woman, or on Instagram at the All In Woman as well. And you can come check us out there, ask some questions, and dig in more into that. I also have a free Facebook group. I think I mentioned this earlier that I have a free Facebook group. So if you're like, hey, I want to just like hang out in your world, we're at the, if you go to facebook.com/groups/6-figure marketing, you can find us there.
Awesome. Ladies, I know you got something out of this. And if nothing else, raise your prices. But Natasha, thanks again for hanging out with us on the Brittany Smith podcast. You guys, make sure you check her out at the All In Woman on Facebook and Instagram. Like she said, just connect with her so that you can see, as she's posting things, whenever you're ready to jump all in, you can go ahead and work with her. And as you know, you can always connect with me on Facebook as well in the Female Coaches, Consultants, and Content Creators group on Facebook. And yeah, I'm so excited that you guys are here. I pray that you will apply what you've gotten from this. One of my major takeaways is to celebrate. I'm going to go ahead and post. So y'all go and check my page. If y'all don't see nothing by the end of today, whenever the day is, just go back because it's not going to be 2 days, but just go back on my page and make sure I posted about the Charlie B podcast. Okay. But we have to celebrate ourselves and our milestones and the things that we do because what we do matters. What we do in our business matters. We are out here changing lives in these streets. And nobody knows about it unless you tell them about it. Okay. So thank you guys for hanging out with us. And we'll see you next week for another episode of the Brittany Smith podcast. Bye.